Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into the thinking of Mehdi Ben Barka. He's often seen as this key figure, maybe the key figure, in Moroccan resistance, but also a major voice across Africa in the 60s.
Absolutely a towering figure, and his analysis remains incredibly relevant.
And the source material we're diving into today, it's pretty intense. It's mainly his 1962 report, Revolutionary Option in Morocco. But this isn't just history.
No, not at all. It's more like a blueprint, a really rigorous intellectual framework for tackling the failures that came after independence.
Right. And the backstory of this document is kind of amazing, too.
It really is. It was an internal document, wasn't meant for public eyes, just for his party, the UNFP, the National Union of Popular Forces. They were the main socialist opposition back then.
And it only surfaced because, well, it was found by accident in his luggage after he was forced into exile.
Exactly, just stumbled upon, and then he chose to release it.
And the timing, that's crucial. He put it out there to explain the context, the buildup to that huge, bloody popular uprising in Casablanca, March 1965.
Yeah, he was essentially saying, look, this violence didn't come from nowhere. If you were shocked, you hadn't understood the intellectual decay and the economic freefall happening right under your noses.
Such a unique figure, a mathematician, highly trained, who becomes this revolutionary agitator.
They called him a man of truth. He had this reputation for demanding absolute conceptual clarity, real rigor, and political strategy.
Yeah.
No fuzzy thinking allowed.
Okay, so that frames our mission for this deep dive. We're trying to unpack Ben Barka's framework, his almost mathematical way of analyzing things to pinpoint the real enemy he saw emerging: neocolonialism.
Let's get into it.
So, starting with that rigor, that intellectual discipline, it's
Yeah.
striking. He argued that if your definitions were confused, that was an internal problem for the movement before it became a political obstacle.
Right. He wanted politics pulled out of the day-to-day chaos, the free play of uncontrolled events, as he put it. It needed structure, needed clear concepts.
He seemed almost obsessed with analytical purity. You couldn't just aim for something vague like socialism or development.
Well, obsessed might be strong, but he saw it as fundamental. You had to turn it into a concept, as he said. Elaborate it conceptually. What does it actually mean in terms of structures, policies, measurable changes? Otherwise, regimes just steal your words.
It sounds incredibly demanding, though, especially for a leader in the thick of political turmoil. How practical is that level of precision?
But for him, it wasn't about being impractical. It was about survival, political survival. He saw linguistic ambiguity, even tiny bits, as hiding potential betrayals. There's that famous story.
The semicolon?
Yeah, the semicolon. In the consultative assembly, right. A representative is complaining that an opposition motion on the budget has no reservations, no teeth. And Ben Barka stands up and says, no, the reservation is there. It's embedded in this single semicolon right here in this phrase.
A semicolon?
Yes. And he argued that tiny punctuation mark, which everyone else missed, contained a world of meaning. It represented a subtle concession that basically neutered the reform being proposed.
Wow. Fighting political battles over punctuation. That really tells you something about the need to dissect language when you're up against, well, deliberate obfuscation.
It does. It shows the level of detail needed.
But doesn't that level of, I don't know, absolute conceptual purity risk paralysis? Politics involves messy compromises, right? The very thing he seemed to reject.
That's the tension, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think he wasn't rejecting compromise itself. He was rejecting lying about the compromise, self-deception. That's why he hated these vague ideas like speeding up of history. What does that even mean?
Right. It sounds good, but
Exactly. For him, liberation wasn't about some abstract timeline. The analysis had to be sharp, almost binary. Did liberation happen through victory over the colonizer, or did it happen through collaboration with them?
and collaboration, even if dressed up nicely, was failure.
Total failure. Because it meant the old structures, the ones benefiting the colonizer, remained intact, just maybe with a new face.
And he applied that same sharp edge to socialism, the ultimate goal. Because lots of new nations were calling themselves socialists then.
Oh, he had no time for that. Just slapping on a label. Concepts like, national glory, or even things that sound positive, like satisfying essential needs or man's happiness.
He called those ideological perversions.
Yeah.
Strong words.
Very strong. He argued they were used deliberately to gut socialism of its actual meaning, its structural core, making it just a word, a slogan. For him, the strength of socialism wasn't in feel-good promises, but in explaining social structures and building clear concepts for change.
Okay, so this demand for precision, this rigorous analysis, It wasn't just academic, it was driven by the grim reality in Morocco leading up to 65, a reality hidden by vague language.
Exactly. The post-independence government, in his view, had utterly failed the people. Its core policy was what he termed reactionary stabilization.
Let's unpack that term a bit. What did he mean by reactionary stabilization?
It means the government actively stopped progressive reforms. They put the brakes on social and economic change on purpose. Why? To protect the old guard, the local feudal elites, and crucially, the interests of foreign capital, neo-colonial interests.
So, stabilizing the status quo for the benefit of the powerful.
Precisely. And they propped this up with a flawed constitutional system, even allowing, as he saw it, blatant fraud in the 1963 elections to ensure the right people got in.
He mentioned the May 1960 coup attempt. He saw something positive there.
Only in a very specific sense. Not that the coup itself was good, but that it ripped away the masks. It forced a clear confrontation, made it obvious who stood for progress and who stood for reaction. It brought clarity, even if through crisis.
And that clarity was vital, because the economic reality driving the anger in 1965, well, the numbers are just brutal.
They really are. You mentioned the data he compiled. The average working family's living standard, their actual ability to buy necessities, dropped by at least 30% between 1960 and 1965.
Wait, say that again, 30%.
At least 30%.
In 5 years.
That's not just a downturn, that's a catastrophe for ordinary people.
It's utter collapse translated into widespread suffering.
Yep.
It makes you understand why people reached a breaking point, and it shows how disconnected the regime was.
Completely. And look at basic goods. Sugar, for instance, a staple, right? He notes it took up maybe 60% of a peasant's cash budget.
Yeah, a huge chunk.
Its price nearly doubled in less than a year, from 106 francs a kilo in August 63 to 191 by May 64. Doubled. So your ability to buy this absolute basic just gets slashed. You can't spin that positively. People feel that directly, immediately. Their minimal financial buffer just vanished.
And nationally, the picture wasn't any better. Per capita production fell over 6% in those 4 years.
Right. The whole economy was shrinking relative to the population.
Plus, Morocco had almost the lowest rate of invested savings among developing nations at the time. Only Jordan was worse off, apparently.
Which means no fuel for future growth, no investment happening.
And the national financial reserves, his words were literally disappeared.
So the political jargon, the promises, they were masking a full-blown economic meltdown.
And here's the crucial step in his analysis. He saw this Moroccan disaster not as unique, but as a textbook case, a template for neo-colonial control globally.
Yes, this is where he develops his concept of neo-colonialism. He called it the preventive flight of the old colonial powers.
Preventive flight.
Meaning they grant formal independence, lower the old flag, raise the new one, big ceremonies, but they engineer it so that real control, especially economic and financial, stays firmly in their hands or in the hands of local allies.
It's a trick, essentially. A lure.
A deception and a lure, exactly. It stabilizes the situation for their interests, often by empowering reactionary local groups who manage things for them.
And this wasn't just random bad luck. It was a structural shift in how imperialism operated.
Right. He saw that post-WWII Western Europe, influenced by the Marshall Plan and the OIS economy, started adopting American models. The old direct colonial administration was becoming inefficient, costly, and frankly, politically untenable.
So out with the old direct rule, in with indirect economic dominance, like the U.S. model in Latin America.
Precisely. Which led Ben Barka to ask that really sharp, defining question for the continent. Will Africa be Europe's Latin America?
Will it become a continent of formally independent states, but fundamentally dependent on foreign capital, foreign interests, maybe even foreign intervention?
That was the nightmare scenario. And the Congo crisis became the perfect, tragic illustration of this whole dynamic in real time.
How so? What happened in Congo that tested this theory?
The Congo was where you saw these neo-colonial forces actively maneuvering to undermine genuine African unity. They tried to co-opt the newly formed Organization of African Unity, the OAU, and turn it into, as Ben Barka put it, a tool more pliant to reactionary currents.
And Moise Tchomb's return to power there in '64 was central to this.
Absolutely central. Tshombe was the archetype, the perfect example. of the comprador bourgeoisie.
Okay, define that term quickly, comprador bourgeoisie.
Sure. It refers to a local elite, a ruling class that essentially acts as an agent for foreign economic interests. Their power and wealth derive not from national development, but from managing the relationship with foreign capital, often at the nation's expense. They're the internal managers of neocolonialism.
Got it. And Shom fit that bill perfectly.
To a T, Ben Barka quoted others calling Shom the museum, the reincarnation of all the ingredients of neocolonialism. He embodied the collaborationist route.
So for Ben Barka and the UNFP, working with Shomba, recognizing his regime
Was impossible. It was seen as a fundamental betrayal of the entire African liberation project. It meant legitimizing the very forces they were fighting against.
Okay, so faced with this bleak picture, internal failure in Morocco, neo-colonial structures across Africa, the UNFP, needed a way forward, a revolutionary path. And crucially, this involved looking inward first.
Yes, that self-criticism was key, applying the same ruthless analysis to their own past actions and mistakes. He wasn't just blaming the regime, he was demanding intellectual honesty from the movement itself.
And he identified 3 big errors they'd made. What was the first one?
The first was about how they evaluated compromises. Think about the agreements around independence, like Elobama. He argued they tended to sell these deals to the public as total victories.
And still,
Instead of being honest, these were objective agreements. You win some, you lose some, or maybe you get forced into accepting less than you wanted. By presenting them only as wins, they failed to educate people about the remaining challenges, the limitations, the battles still to be fought.
okay, so lack of transparency about compromises. What was the second error?
Fighting battles in secret. He pointed out that crucial struggles over things like how elections would be run, the type of ballot, or the structure of key state institutions were often fought behind closed doors within the elite circles.
And the problem with that was,
The people were kept in the dark. They couldn't understand the real stakes, who was pushing for what, who their real allies and enemies were within the system. You can't mobilize people if they don't understand the fight. Political clarity demands openness.
makes sense. And the third error,
Unclear aims. This connects back to the conceptual Ritter point. He argued they hadn't clearly articulated the specific long-range economic, social, and political structure they wanted for Morocco.
so they had slogans, but not the detailed blueprint.
Exactly. And if your vision isn't precise, if it's just vague words like freedom, justice, development, then the regime can easily co-opt those very words. They steal your slogans and use them, but strip them of any revolutionary substance.
Right. They define development in a way that serves them, not the people.
Precisely. So, learning from these mistakes, the path forward required concrete structural actions to build a genuinely socialist, non-capitalist future.
Like what? What were the concrete steps?
Well, take agrarian reform. For Ben Barka, this wasn't just one policy option among many, it was fundamental. Thoroughgoing agrarian reform was seen as the only way to break the power of the domestic feudal landowner.
And why was that so critical?
Because that feudal class was the main local ally of neocolonial interests, of foreign capital. You couldn't challenge foreign domination effectively without dismantling the power base of its key domestic partners. There were two sides of the same coin.
So land reform was directly linked to anti-imperialism. What about democracy? If elections were being faked, what did real democratization look like?
Not just rushing to hold national elections for a puppet parliament. No. True democratization meant deep structural reforms, starting at the local level, municipal reform, communal reform.
Why start local?
To force the hand of those who actually held power, the local reactionaries, the compradors tied to the regime, to make power accountable to the people from the ground up, building real democratic structures rather than just accepting the facade from the top down.
Okay. And this all leads back to defining what true socialism actually entails beyond the label. You mentioned 3 essential conditions he laid out.
Yes, think of it like needing the right parts for a car to actually run, not just calling it a car. You can't just call a state socialist.
Right. So condition number 1.
First, solving the problem of power. This means real, genuine democratic control over the state apparatus, the police, the army, the bureaucracy, by the masses, by the people. Who holds the steering wheel?
Okay. Condition 2.
Second, the economic structure. You need an economy that fundamentally uproots the dominance of both foreign imperialists and the collaborating national bourgeoisie. You have to change the engine, replace the old system based on exploitation with one geared towards national needs.
Makes sense. Power and economy. And the third.
Third, The social and political organization. You need structures that actively mobilize, educate, and empower the masses. Not just passive recipients, but active participants in building the new society, accumulating resources, understanding the ideology. It's about teaching everyone how to drive and maintain this new vehicle.
So power to the people, a new economic engine, and an engaged, educated population driving it.
Without all three, he argued, socialism is just an empty slogan, maybe even a lie used by a new elite.
It really all circles back to that core theme, doesn't it? Ben Barka's relentless insistence on intellectual honesty, on conceptual rigor.
It does. The fight wasn't just for independence on paper or even just for immediate material improvements, crucial as those are. The deeper struggle was to ensure political action was grounded in clear, unflinching analysis, turning objectives into a concept first.
And that conceptual clarity is what allows you to see through the fog, to identify the real enemy.
Exactly. And to understand the political dynamic after independence, he recognized that unless you completely dismantle the old colonial state machinery right away, which is incredibly difficult, there's likely to be this post-independence pause.
A pause where things seem stuck.
Yes, where formal independence exists, but the underlying power structures haven't really changed. During that pause, the crucial political task is for the masses to experience who really holds power. The alliance of old feudalism, the comprador collaborators, and foreign capital. Their failures, their actions, must unmask them in practice.
So the struggle continues long after the flag changes.
It's a long march, and the challenge Ben Barka leaves us with, I think, whatever our own political views might be, is about the quality of our own analysis.
Right.
Are we demanding enough precision in our own thinking? Is our understanding of the forces at play sharp enough? Could our political plans withstand scrutiny so intense that, well, that a single semicolon could reveal a hidden world of meaning? That's the incredibly high bar he set.